dollar. Dirt and money, no soul. Had to go and get it, ain't no time to kick it. Got a stack of flip for my foes. Dollar. Please tell me you can hear me. Don't turn your back and don't neglect me. Just let me know if you need me. Dollar. Let me watch out for my partners. Keep my money long, get my team strong. Let me run away from my problems.
Yo, what's good, original crew? It's your boy, DJ Nuki, your girl.
Sierra Nicole.
Back on the channel with more Mr. Ballen, man. Today, we got top 3 videos with disturbing backstories, part 2. Reason why I chose this one, because I saw here on his community tab, he said, hey, I ain't want to look into it, but afterwards I'll address it. But in the community tab was some revealing things.
Oh, okay.
What you looking like this for?
I thought you was about to tell him. I thought you were about to tell me.
No. We'll discuss it at the end. So
okay.
Make sure y'all check out the links in the description box.
Down below.
You already know where to go, man. You want the first part, you gotta do it, check out down below. Also, if you enjoyed today's video, lock it in with a thumbs up for us. But
please do that.
You ready?
Yes, I'm
ready. Alright, let's go ahead and get into it. Let's check it out. Let's see what's about, man.
Today, I'm going to share with you 3 progressively more disturbing stories, and at the end of each of them, I'm going to share with you the video that is famously associated with them. But before I get into today's stories, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right channel, because that's all I do, and I upload 3, 4, even 5 times every week. So if that's of interest to you, please offer the like button a ride home from soccer practice, but then don't show up. Also, please subscribe to this channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of my weekly uploads. All right, let's get into today's stories. On April 9th, 2015, residents of the tiny farming community Fairdale, Illinois, woke up to heavy rains outside and an ominous forecast. Severe thunderstorms were going to persist all day, and then at night there was a chance of a tornado. Meteorologists were telling residents of Fairdale that if you can, you should evacuate because it's not worth sticking around for. But if you're going to ride out the storm, make sure you've taken the necessary precautions and make sure you have a plan for how to get to a shelter if the storm gets really bad. That morning, some forecasters were saying this tornado could prove to be one of the biggest in Illinois' history. But most of the 152 Fairdale residents had lived here their whole lives, and they had seen bad storms before, even tornadoes, and they had ridden them out before. How could this one be any different? You know, most of the time, the worst that happened was maybe a power line comes down and you lose power for the day. But unlike...
Now I was just gonna ask a quick question.
No.
How many of y'all who like actually deal with tornadoes in y'all areas?
Yeah. How
many of y'all like just ride them out? Like, or do y'all evacuate the city or go to somewhere else? Or do y'all just like, cause us.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about y'all growing up, but like we ride them out. Like
yeah,
when to be real, honestly, if it ever got, I think one time it got bad to the point where the only thing we did was get in the bathtub.
Well, one time it had got really bad where they had time to evacuate and they went to like the police station and the base. They held people like there. But other than that.
Now, have I ever seen the aftermath of tornadoes? Yes. Do I know people who died from tornadoes? Yes. Have I seen people not be able to bounce back from whether their home or property or anything? Yes. I've seen the destruction tornado, but to be honest, anytime I'm like I don't really panic.
I guess it just depends on it. For me, it depends on like how bad, like when you watching the news and okay, this one feels a little different than like the other ones. You kind of know. You kind of got to use your discernment. Like you kind of know, like okay, this one does seem a little different. Things are, but most of the time we just ride it out though.
Yeah.
Storms, this one was getting worse and worse by the minute, and by 6 p.m. that night, forecasters were no longer theorizing that this could be a huge tornado. They were outright pleading with Fairdale residents to evacuate while you still can. But despite these warnings, the vast majority of Fairdale residents stayed put. They were committed to riding the storm out. By 7 p.m., meteorologists were saying this tornado is imminent and it looks as big or bigger than the last major tornado that came through Illinois that killed 8 people and leveled an entire town. This tornado tonight is going to kill people. Just 15 minutes later at 7:15, the tornado finally touched down right outside of Fairdale. It was this massive, almost mile-wide tornado with over 200-mile-an-hour winds. And unlike other tornadoes of that size that typically move at about 30 miles an hour, this one was traveling on land at about 15 miles an hour, meaning it would be sitting over the areas. It was devastating for longer amounts of time, making it even worse than some of the worst predictions that meteorologists had for this tornado. 15 minutes later at 7:30 p.m., 84-year-old Fairdale resident Clem Schultz and his wife Jerry Schultz, they were at home because they had decided to ride out the storm. As Clem is sitting in the living room watching the Weather Channel, kind of waiting for the last possible second to go into their basement, he hears his wife yell out from the kitchen to come in here and look at this. So Clem goes into the kitchen and she's pointing out the back window, and he looks out and he sees this massive tornado coming right at them. It's less than a mile away, and it is way bigger than he thought it was going to be. But from their perspective, because the tornado was spinning counterclockwise, it kind of looked like it was spinning away from town into this empty field. And Clem says to his wife, Jerry, you know what? It looks like it's going to miss us, but we're probably going to lose power, so I'm going to go up into the attic and get some lanterns ready. So Jerry stays in the kitchen, Clem goes up into the attic, and as he's fishing to get out the lanterns, he hears what sounds like a freight train barreling through town, and he had this little window at the edge of his attic, so he goes over and he looks out, and the tornado had not veered off into the open field. It had continued straight towards his house, and it was ripping off roofs right in front of him. And he figured, I don't have enough time to go down into the basement. I have no time to do anything. So he takes out his phone and he begins recording.
Wow.
Clem's house, along with all the others in that video, collapsed. And initially, Clem thought he had died because it went totally quiet and it was totally dark. And he actually said out loud, "Am I dead?" But it was the pain in his back from a crushed vertebrae that told him, no, you survived. And he begins to kind of pull himself out of the rubble, and before long, a neighbor is pulling him out. And as soon as he's out of the rubble of his house, he looks around, and his whole community is pretty much gone. And as he's standing there kind of bewildered, his neighbor says, "Clem, don't look down." And Clem says, "Why?" And his neighbor says, "Because your wife is under you and she's dead." When the dust had finally settled, not only had Clem's wife been killed, but Clem's neighbor had been killed as well, because the tornado went directly through their two houses. That video that Clem shot is now used to educate people on how dangerous tornadoes really are, and how anytime a tornado is coming through your area, never go outside to film it, seek shelter.
Wow.
I ain't gonna lie, that one, yeah, you evacuate. Yeah, like, even though we said, like from where we come from, we, like, typically wait it out, that looked like a Category 5.
But that's always the thing, though. It's kind of like, oh my gosh, people always, oh, they just exaggerate. It's not gonna be that bad, because like you get them so often, and you like, oh, we've experienced this before. It was never that bad, so this one can't be that bad. Like, you don't know until it's already hit you, and you like, dang.
And
like,
and I'll say this, typically, like, especially when we going through experience and seeing some of the people who have been hit by it. Also, you can kind of predict where it's going to hit. Yeah. Because typically, it's in rural spots. Yeah. Houses are spaced out enough for... I'm not a meteorologist or anything. No. I'm not a storm chaser, so I don't understand. Yeah. But it's always somewhere, like, in an open field country where it has a lot of... I don't know why. Like, I'm sure somebody going to fill us in. But it typically hits places, like, what we will say... Even though we're from small towns, but we'll still say out in the country. Yeah. Because it's out in the boonies where it typically touches down. But from where we're from, Jackson, in this mid-city, got hit horrible.
Yeah.
And it's just...
That was terrible.
That was like... I remember going, I was like, oh,
what year was that? Do you remember?
Bro, I cannot remember. Typically, but when I say typically, it normally only happens out in the country.
Yeah.
But that time, it had hit in the city, and you just was like, oh my God.
Yeah, that was bad.
Yeah, man. But again, if the news people say evacuate at that point, like no lie,
especially like pleading, like this is not looking good
yeah,
enough from what we can see.
Yeah.
Like, just take precaution and do what you got to do and seek shelter.
On Sunday, February 12th, 2017, Abigail Williams was over her best friend, Liberty German's house for a sleepover. Abby and Libby were 13 and 14, respectively. That night, as they're laying in bed, they were looking out the window, hoping they saw snowflakes come down, because there was apparently this huge storm that was going to roll through the next day, and they were hoping that if it did, school would be canceled the next day. But when they woke up the next morning, it hadn't even snowed. However, they found out that in Delphi, Indiana, where they lived, school had been canceled preemptively in anticipation of this big storm that never really amounted to anything. So the girls got a free day off where they could actually go outside and enjoy it. So the girls start talking about how they're going to spend their extra day off, and Libby suggests, well, why don't we go check out the Monon High Bridge? It was this abandoned bridge that crossed over the stream, and a lot of their classmates would take pictures on it and post it to their social media, and the girls figured this is a great day to go do that. So Libby asks her grandmother, Becky, who was her primary caretaker, if it would be okay if they went for a hike over near this bridge. Becky gives them permission, but with the caveat that they would find their own ride there and back. So Libby convinces her older sister Kelsey to give them a ride there, and Libby speaks to her father, Derek, and he says he can pick them up, but he'd only be able to pick them up at a very specific time, which would only give the girls a couple of hours at the bridge, but they thought that was fine and that was plenty of time. So a couple hours later, at about 1:30 in the afternoon, Kelsey drops off the two girls at the start of the trail that's going to bring them to this bridge. We know the girls made it to the bridge because at 2:07 p.m., Libby posted a picture to her social media of Abby walking across the bridge. At 3:11 p.m., Libby's father, Derek, texted her and said, hey, I'm going to be there in a minute. Just want to make sure you guys are there to meet me. And she didn't text Derek back, and Derek would later say that that was pretty unusual for her. At 3:14 p.m., Derek arrives at the meeting spot, and the girls are nowhere to be found. And so Derek tries calling. There's no answer. He texts his daughter, no response. And so he ends up calling Becky, Libby's grandmother, his mother, and says, hey, did the girls contact you and change plans about where I was picking them up or when? And Becky said, no, I haven't heard from them. They said they'd be there at 3. They should be there now. I haven't heard from them. And Derek says he can't get in touch with them. So for the next 10 minutes, Becky and her husband, Mike, Libby's grandfather, just tried calling over and over and over again to the girls, but nothing's going through. They can't get them to respond to text messages. So Mike leaves and meets up with Derek in the parking lot, and the two of them begin walking the trail to try to find these girls. At this point, the family's not suspecting foul play. They're thinking, the girls probably got lost, or they lost track of time, or their phones just ran out of batteries, or maybe they did get hurt and they can't move, but it's probably not that serious. They're creating scenarios in their head to rationalize what's happening. But by the time the sun went down at about 5 p.m. and there was still no sign of these girls, they ended up calling the police and officially reporting the girls missing. By 6 p.m. that night, there is this massive search combing the trail looking for these girls, but all night, they're looking everywhere with hundreds of searchers, and there's no sign of them. The following day, on Tuesday, February 14th, one of the searchers was about a half mile away from the bridge where the girls have been taking those pictures, and they discovered the girls' bodies right next to a creek. The police didn't release their cause of death. However, they said, without a doubt, this is a homicide, because apparently the scene was incredibly disturbing and had at least 2 or 3 signatures. Signatures are things done to the victims that are above and beyond what is required to end their life. Things like writing on the victims or their body position, or much, much worse. And usually you only see signatures when you're dealing with a serial killer. 3 days after the bodies were discovered, police were able to extract some video from Libby's phone. It turns out when Libby was taking those pictures of Abby on the bridge and had just posted it to social media, apparently this guy had come on the bridge and Libby must have sensed danger and she began filming him. Now, there is apparently a video that starts from the bridge, and lasts all the way through the girl's final moments. But the police would release a very small snippet of this recording because it showed who they believe is the killer walking towards them with his hands in his pockets looking down, and he says to them, "Guys, down the hill."
Guys, down the hill. Guys, down the hill.
Despite thousands of tips pouring in as soon as this video was made public, they still don't know who this guy is, no arrests have been made, and the case remains unsolved.
Wow.
I remember that.
Wow.
That whole footage situation. Do you remember that?
I don't.
You ain't never. Have you seen that before? And I'm gonna say yes, you have, but you don't remember because it's been in another video we've
like
seen before.
I was thinking that, but I was trying not to get it like confused with the one because I remember one where they was like, were they like in the woods or something, and they seen. I think I do kind of remember that, but I didn't know like the full details.
Bro, like I didn't know those. Like those way
details,
more.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like I do remember that clip, but
And now I'll say this. I didn't know there was a whole footage about the whole situation.
Didn't know that.
I thought that was the only footage that they
from
had.
From the time he was coming towards them from their last moment?
Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't know they had a whole... And then even the details of... They weren't even supposed to be out there that long. And I ain't gonna count... I give it to Mr. Ballen on this one. This one gave a lot more details that people did not know. And
we definitely did.
And it's crazy that it went unsolved. And y'all had so you telling me there's not? Well, honestly, the sketch y'all got probably came from the video that y'all was able to see.
Yeah.
And did bro? I don't even want to think about this situation.
Yeah, I don't. That's sad. That's so sad.
And think about it. To be honest, when the dad was out there to pick him up. Like, at what point?
Oh, my. Yeah. I don't even want to think about that.
At what point did the attack happen? And could the dad possibly, and I know he possibly...
was there as it was,
as it was going on, or could he have intervened if he had knew where they were,
I don't want to think about that. That's sad.
Before The Bachelorette pitted 30 men against each other to win one woman's heart, Americans watched another show about random strangers competing for a mate. It was called The Dating Game. Starting in 1965, this reality show featured a woman asking 3 men questions without seeing their faces, and based on their answers, at the end of the show, she would choose one to go on a date with. On the surface, the September 13th, 1978 showing of The Dating Game looks like every other episode with lots of unsubtle
We know about this. I want to say we know about this because we just watched the Top 10.
Was that though?
Yeah, it was the dating show.
No, but this episode would go down in history as a one of a kind, and not in a good way. At the end of this particular show, it was time for the Bachelorette, Cheryl Bradshaw, to make her decision, and she would choose Bachelor number 1, who would turn out to be this tall, good-looking, long-haired guy whose name was Rodney. Rodney comes around the partition and they see each other for the first time and everybody laughs and they hug and the show looks like every other show, and on stage, Rodney looks like every other contestant that's ever been on the show. But after the show ended and Cheryl and Rodney went backstage and actually began having a real conversation that was not being filmed, Cheryl would say that Rodney completely changed. He became incredibly creepy and was saying things like, "I always get the girl." And then at some point he says, "Hey, you should come out with me tonight. It'll be a date you'll never forget." And she turns to him and just says, "No thanks." This would turn out to be a really wise decision because Rodney was a horrible, horrible person. Had the show done a background check on Rodney, they would have discovered that he assaulted an 8-year-old and went to jail for 3 years for it and was currently on parole. But even if they had done a background check on Rodney, the check would not have discovered what he did at night. Rodney was shamelessly cocky and self-confident, and unlike a lot of men, he had no issue walking right up to any woman anywhere and flirting with her. And he used that to his advantage. He would go up to women in bars and he would convince them that he was a fashion photographer and that they were so beautiful, would you come back to my apartment and do a photo shoot with me? And just like Cheryl on the dating show, these women were immediately kind of charmed by him and would say yes. Once they got back to his apartment, he would shut and lock the door and then become that creepy guy that Cheryl saw backstage. But unlike Cheryl, who at the time she saw this just said, I'm not interested, and was able to leave, these women were trapped. And then whether they wanted to or not, they would do a photo shoot with him and then he would strangle them to death. Because Rodney Alcala was not your typical dating game contestant. He was a serial killer who, by the time he stepped foot on that show and was chosen by Cheryl Bradford to win the game, he had already killed 4 people. And over a 2-year period, he killed as many as 130 people, which, if you're doing the math, is over those 2 years, he was killing at least 1 person a week. Alcala was finally apprehended and he was sentenced to death. Here are some highlights from Rodney Alcala's episode of The Dating Game.
And we're going to start by having them say hello to you and see how they sound. Number 1, would you say hello to Cheryl, please?
We're going to have a great time together, Cheryl.
Okay, and here we go.
Bachelor number 1,
Yes.
what's your best time?
The best time is at night, nighttime,
Why do you say that?
because that's the only time there is.
The only time? What's wrong with morning, afternoon?
Well, they're okay, but nighttime's when it really gets good.
Bachelor number 1,
Wow.
I am serving you for dinner.
Oh,
What are you called and what do you look like?
I'm called the banana, and I look really good.
Can you be a little more descriptive?
Peel me.
I'm going to ask you a question. Will that date be Bachelor number 1, Bachelor number 2, or Bachelor number 3? Who gets the dates?
Well, I like bananas, so I'll take 1.
Number 1, Bachelor number 1. All right. He's a skydiver, so he's got a lot of nerve. He's into motorcycling. He's also a fine photographer. Say hello to Rodney Alcala. Rodney, come on and say hello. Congratulations, Rod. You did it with the 1 answer.
So that's going to do it, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's stories. Let me know what you thought in the comments.
Why he kind of resemble Ted?
I know you're supposed to say that.
Cause did you get that same?
Yeah. Well, not just here, but when I first seen him for the first time, he did kind of
He resembled Ted, like.
But
that's crazy.
I'm so glad that they do like their little, even like after, like, let's go backstage, still have a little off camera. Because you kind of get to know, like, once the camera's not, then that real, person, like, who you really are, like, starts to show. And good thing, again, I'm always about discernment. Good thing you like, nope, I'm good. I don't want a second date. I don't want to go back to no, because that would have, like, definitely ended terribly. What's up?
So this, remember I said the reason why I chose this
in the beginning, yes.
In the beginning,
yes.
Because Mr. Ballen, a post came up and I was like, oh,
yeah.
I read some of the posts and I was like, oh, I'm gonna watch the video before.
Okay.
So it says, finally an arrest was made in the infamous Delphi murders case. A 50-year-old man named Richard Allen was taken into custody yesterday. He looks exactly like the man who was captured on video by one of the 2 victims right before they were attacked. So they actually got a suspect in the case, the second case.
Yeah.
Of the 2 girls.
Yeah. On the bridge.
But I remember, bro.
And this happened, what year? 2017? Dang.
Like, that is so crazy. The fact that they just arrested somebody for...
My thing is, it's always... Is that him?
Mm-hmm.
My thing is always better late than never, but my thing, have you harmed anyone else during this time?
And want me to tell you the reason why I feel like he possibly has? Well, like Mr. Ballen said, he left signature marks.
Yeah,
signature marks. serial killer. And then the way he approached them, he said, "Girls, down the hill."
You know what I'm saying?
And it was like a command of, like, I don't know if they had, because I think at one point they tried to say that the girls had interacted with him before. I don't remember. Like, I'm saying, like, because, like, online things, and he probably faked it.
Always,
But, but what creep is also out here chilling, or do he know that's where young girls typically go?
Or people. Because, again, like he stated, a lot of their classmates come.
But 9 times out of 10, his target is probably just young girls. And that's why I said that. Like, it's how many do you typically just hang out here and look for, you know what I'm saying, innocent victims?
Yeah.
Is that one of your spots? You know what I'm saying? Did you attack them there because it was both of them? Or do you normally, like, kidnap? I know somebody said I always go to that. But do you normally take your victims back somewhere with you? You know what I'm saying? Because you just...
9 times out of 10, no. Everything happened there.
But, well, not necessarily, because... I'm saying other victims. Have you...
Oh, other... Like, okay. I'm talking about just this...
No, I'm talking about other victims, because 9 times out of 10, he's a serial killer. 9 times out of 10, you just don't approach girls...
Well, 9 times out of 10, also...
And then you knew how to approach them.
9 times out of 10, he probably not getting all his victims from this particular spot. But
I'm just saying, like, what reason why I'm saying that, what made you show up that day across on the other side of the bridge? Nobody else is at... That look like a secluded area.
Yeah.
You have had to come there before. You have had to know what is up with this area. Or did you know the girls is going to be there at a certain time? That's what I mean by that. Like, were you like a secret person online?
Like with situations
they told you
like
they were going out there and you met up with them trying to,
Yeah,
because that happens.
Yeah, I mean, it happens. Yeah, most definitely. But with situations like this, it's kind of like you never really know. Like, you can like form all type of assumptions and speculations, but you just really never know. Yeah. But
I'm glad they have caught someone. Hopefully, if it is the right individual, hopefully
they have enough evidence that can stick. So that justice will be served.
Yeah, because if he was 50 then, he was in his 40s then, that would be that looked like a 40 to 50 year old man. And the reason why I was like, because the way he approached them with his head down, just in case y'all are recording me, I don't want you, you know what I'm saying. But,
right, because 9 times out of 10, if he's been watching, you already see that they have their phone out, taking pictures.
But why he did take the phone? Because the police was able to recover that to even get the video.
I don't know what that's about, but that's crazy. Weird, it's so sad.
Hey, man.
Sick individuals.
Make sure y'all spam us up. Let us know y'all thoughts and opinions in the comment section down below. A lot of situations vary from the tornado. Yeah. Very sad situation. That was sad, this past situation, very sad situation. What was the third one again? The second one was
the second one was the girls.
The girls, that's
and
what I'm
then
saying.
The game show.
The game show. We just found out about that guy.
Rodney.
Creep. And then I didn't know he had that many bodies.
Yeah, because the top 10 that we seen with him, they weren't sure because they said he had only confessed to like 30 bodies or something like that. 30. Yeah. So and
that's crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah. But as always, man, y'all know how it go. I do go with the name of Jenny Kid. This is we are y'all.
Go and get it, ain't no time to kick it. Got a stack and flip for my foes. Dollar. Please tell me you can hear me. Don't turn your back and don't neglect me. Just let me know if you need me. Dollar.